Welcome to Twisted Truths, where betrayal meets brutal payback, and where the most unexpected twists expose what people are really capable of. This story isn't just shocking, it's personal. My name is Cole Barrett, and for almost 8 years I was the lead designer at Iron Summit Gear, a company once known for making elite outdoor equipment that serious climbers, explorers, and survivalists trusted with their lives. Or I should say, I was the lead designer. Until a Thursday morning I'll never forget. It started with a cold email from my boss, Sierra Langford, the newly minted creative director. Quick sync in my office. 9 a.m. Bring your ID. The second I read that last sentence, I knew. Something wasn't right. When I walked in, Rachel from HR was already seated. The vibe was antiseptic, like a dentist's waiting room before a root canal. Sierra didn't waste time. Cole, we appreciate your contributions. But we need to evolve. The market is shifting and your creative direction no longer aligns with our vision. Aligns? I repeated, stunned. She smiled, that tight, glossy smile she always gave when she wanted to look empathetic but didn't want to waste energy actually feeling it. We're looking for voices that are more in tune with the Gen Z market. Fresh, minimalist. You've been with us almost a decade, and sometimes that history can limit innovation. My blood went cold. I wasn't just any designer. I was the architect behind their flagship products. The Hawkridge modular jacket, the Atlas ProPack series, and the Vortex thermal grid system that had won 2 innovation awards in Europe. These designs had pulled Iron Summit out of bankruptcy 5 years ago. They didn't just align with the brand, they became the brand. And now I was being fired for being too legacy. I said nothing. I just watched Sierra slide a manila folder across the desk. My severance papers. I signed. What choice did I have? I packed my things quietly, like someone cleaning up after a funeral. My sketchbooks, my tools, my tablet. 8 years of prototypes, design iterations, and field-tested notes, all boxed up in 30 minutes. As I walked out, none of the new hires made eye contact. Probably because most of them were Sierra's people. Fresh faces from luxury design schools who knew more about branding than survival conditions. Iron Summit had become a style brand. Performance was now just a footnote. But what Sierra didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that I'd been building something quietly. Something big. And when I say building, I don't just mean ideas. I mean proof. That night, I sat at my drafting table and stared at a thick stack of sketches, designs I'd pitched over the last year that were labeled too complex or not aesthetic enough. She'd rejected every single one. But that wasn't the betrayal. The real knife in the back came 3 weeks before I was fired. I had submitted an internal proposal for a multi-layered adaptive system for cold weather survival, a design that would allow modular transitions based on wind resistance, body temperature, and movement dynamics. 2 weeks later, Justin Crane, a recent hire with zero field experience but a jawline sculpted by Instagram filters, presented a nearly identical concept to the executive board. Word for word, detail for detail. My system. His name. And Sierra? She praised him as a creative genius. I should have walked out that day. But I didn't. I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe it was coincidence. But now, I knew better. They didn't just fire me. They stole from me. And they thought I would just disappear quietly. That was their biggest mistake. Because now, I wasn't playing defense. I was going to burn the whole damn house down. The morning after my firing, I got a call from Ethan Travers, an old friend from college who now worked at Blackridge Outdoor Tech, one of Iron Summit's top competitors. You free? He asked. More than ever, I said bitterly. I saw the internal memo. They let you go? Yep. They're insane. Then, after a pause, do you still have the experimental series? The adaptive load system. Every single detail, I said. Filed, time-stamped, and backed up in 3 places. Ethan let out a low whistle. You need to come in. Like today. Blackridge has been trying to crack adaptive gear systems for 2 years. We've got a winter line launch in 7 months, and I think you just became our ace. That was the moment the grief faded. It was replaced with something colder. More focused. Sierra didn't just kick me out. She freed me. And now, I had nothing holding me back. I stepped into Blackridge HQ the next morning and was greeted by something I hadn't felt in years. Respect. Their head of R&D, Dana Kowalski, sat across from me in a cluttered conference room, leafing through the prints I'd brought. You built this alone? She asked, holding up the Hawkshell schematic. Yes. And Iron Summit rejected it? Called it impractical. She laughed, short and sharp. Idiots. Then her face hardened. Let's get to work. By the end of that week, I had a contract offer. Royalties. Full creative control. A dedicated team. And, most importantly, a green light to move fast. As I left the building with my signed agreement in hand, my phone buzzed. A message from a blocked number. Hope you're doing well. Would love to chat, Sierra. I didn't reply. She wasn't reaching out because she cared. She was starting to realize something. I wasn't gone. I was just getting started. I thought signing the deal with Blackridge would bring instant relief. That I'd feel victorious, liberated. And for a day or two I did. But then the nights came. Long hollow hours where sleep wouldn't stick. My mind kept replaying that meeting, Sierra's smug smile, the silence in the office as I packed my things, the way Justin had looked at me with zero guilt as I passed his desk. 8 years. 8 years of missed holidays, of hiking into sub-zero conditions to personally test my prototypes, of putting real users' needs before corporate trends, and it had ended with a memo and a recycled buzzword, misalignment. That word haunted me. I wasn't just bitter, I was ashamed. Not because I'd been fired, but because I hadn't seen it coming sooner. Because I let them use me. The first week at Blackridge was a blur of onboarding, contracts, and catching up on their backlog of failed prototypes. But late one evening, while reviewing their latest mock-ups, I hit a wall. I stared at their flawed designs and realized I didn't have the energy to fix them. I was exhausted. The spark that had fueled me for years, solving problems, building systems, testing limits, it was flickering. Not dead, but dim. The betrayal had taken something from me. And that scared me more than anything. One night, I went for a solo hike. I packed one of my old prototype backpacks, the Gravitas frame, the one Iron Summit never produced because Sierra said it wasn't Instagrammable. The trail was one I used to walk when I needed clarity. It led to a granite overlook above the city. I reached the top just before midnight, sat on a boulder and watched the fog crawl over downtown. Below me was the Iron Summit building, lit up, lifeless. I thought about how many nights I'd spent in there, sketching designs by headlamp while the rest of the team went home. I thought about Sierra sitting in my office. I thought about all the things I'd given up for that company. And I let myself break. I cried. Big, ugly, chest-heaving sobs. For the time I lost. The friends I'd drifted from. The self-respect I'd slowly traded away in the name of loyalty. And when it was over, when there was nothing left but the cold wind on my face, I realized something. I wasn't crying over a job. I was grieving a version of myself I'd finally outgrown. The next morning, I got a text from Peter Allen, a senior engineer who had worked with me at Iron Summit for years. Just wanted to say, things are not going well over here. Justin's designs are falling apart in prototyping. You were the soul of this place, Cole. And now it's hollow. I stared at my phone. Peter was a good guy, one of the few left. But I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email and dug up a folder labeled Phoenix. Inside were 12 designs Sierra had rejected over the past year. But they weren't just concepts. They were a map. A full ecosystem of integrated outdoor gear. Everything designed to work modularly. Codependent but still fully functional on their own. A new kind of system, fluid, customizable, and user-first. These weren't just products. They were a legacy. My legacy. And Sierra had tried to bury it. But she forgot one thing. I was still breathing. That day, I scheduled a meeting with Dana Kowalski, the R&D head at Blackridge. I brought my Phoenix series blueprints and laid them out on the table like evidence in a trial. These were all rejected by Iron Summit, I said. But not because they didn't work. Because they didn't look good on a billboard. Dana took her time. She studied the prints, the material notes, the scaling diagrams. Finally, she looked up and said, "This isn't just a line." "No," I said. "It's a declaration." She nodded. "I'll talk to corporate. We'll push to fast track." I blinked. "You sure?" "You don't come to me with theory, Cole," she said. "You came with a plan. That's rare." That night, for the first time in months, I opened my sketchpad, not for work, not for contracts, but for me. I drew something new. A concept for a fully transformable base layer system. Something that adapted to body temp and exertion levels. I wasn't sure it could be done. But I wanted to find out. The despair was still there. But beneath it, something new was growing. Not hope. Not yet. But resolve. Sierra and Iron Summit thought they could erase me. What they didn't realize was, I hadn't even begun to write my real story. I was knee-deep in production plans for the Phoenix series when the first red flag hit. Came from a Slack message, of all things. Ethan, my friend who'd brought me into Blackridge, pinged me one night around 11:40 p.m. "Dude, Check your inbox. Tell me if I'm crazy. Attached was a confidential marketing preview from Iron Summit. Ethan had gotten it through back channels. Someone he knew from a retail partner Iron Summit worked with had leaked their fall campaign deck. When I opened the file, I froze. There they were. My designs. Same seams. Same load balance system. Even the color palette was suspiciously similar. But the name on the slides? Justin Crane, lead designer, Elevation Series. I felt the rage surge like heat up my spine. They weren't just stealing. They were rebranding my work under someone else's name. I'd seen these exact concepts get dismissed in front of the board. Too technical, Sierra had said. Not consumer-friendly. Now they were suddenly the cornerstone of Iron Summit's next campaign? I should have known. Sierra hadn't fired me because I lacked creativity. She'd fired me so she could take what I'd already created and pass it off as her own team's innovation. And it wasn't just about ego. It was about timing. My firing. Justin's promotion. The silent disappearance of the prototypes I'd submitted. This wasn't mismanagement. It was calculated theft. The next morning, I called Dana into a closed-door meeting. I showed her the Iron Summit deck. I designed all of this, I said. They rejected it. Now they're relaunching it under a new name, months after letting me go. She leaned in. Do you have proof? Every sketch is time-stamped. Every design iteration logged. I saved all the correspondence, emails, Slack threads, project notes. Dana nodded slowly. Good, she said. Because this is war. By Friday, Blackridge's legal department had reviewed my files. They found my documentation airtight. They cross-referenced the timestamps with Iron Summit's press brief. You're not just protected, said Amira, the company lawyer. You've got leverage. She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. You want to go public with this? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I didn't want a lawsuit. I wanted something worse. I wanted them to watch me succeed, using the very ideas they discarded. I wanted Sierra to see my name on the gear she swore was unmarketable. I wanted the truth to erupt in the middle of their carefully planned launch. I don't want to sue them, I said. Amira raised an eyebrow. I want to beat them. Publicly. That same day, Blackridge greenlit the Phoenix series for full production. Only now we gave it a new name. The Apex line. Because this wasn't just a comeback. It was a climb to the very top. And we were going to get there before Iron Summit's Elevation series ever saw a shelf. Dana scheduled an emergency production sprint. Our marketing team prepped teaser campaigns. I stayed in the design lab, personally tweaking everything from fabric tension to seam layouts to be even better than the original prototypes. I didn't sleep much. But I wasn't tired. I was driven. The following week, I got a call from Peter Allen, my old co-worker at Iron Summit. Cole, he said, voice low. I don't know how to tell you this, but they're lying about you. Define lying. Internal memos. They're saying you walked out mid-transition. Left the team without documentation. That you sabotaged the prototyping system before you left. I sat there stunned. Are you serious? I'm serious. Sierra's spinning the narrative. Says you didn't share your specs. That Justin had to rebuild everything from scratch. That explains something. Why they were suddenly so desperate to credit Justin. They needed to make it look like he'd saved the company, not stolen from it. They weren't just trying to steal my work. They were trying to erase me. But Sierra didn't know I still had friends on the inside. Peter sent me screenshots of internal memos. One even quoted Sierra directly. Cole's systems weren't aligned with our vision. Justin had to rebuild everything to make it viable. What a joke. Justin wouldn't know viable if it hit him in the face with a 60-liter pack frame. I sent those files straight to Blackridge's legal team. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I scheduled a meeting with Vera Kane, Iron Summit CEO. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. She walked in wearing designer hiking boots that had never seen mud and a coat worth more than my first paycheck. I slid the leaked campaign images across the table without a word. These are mine, I said. She didn't blink. I'm not in charge of product design, Cole. No, but you're responsible for theft when it happens under your leadership. She stirred her latte slowly. Careful, Cole. This industry is small. I leaned forward. I know. Which is why I'm giving you one chance. Cancel your launch. Or I go public, with everything. Her eyes narrowed. We'll manage our own affairs, thank you. I smiled. You already did. Right into the ground. That night I got an email. From Sierra. No greeting. No sign-off. Just one sentence. You're making a mistake. I stared at it for a moment. Then I hit delete. Because the truth? She made the mistake. She thought I was replaceable. What she forgot was, I didn't just work for Iron Summit. I built it. It hit me on a Thursday night at 2:13 a.m. Revenge wasn't just about hitting back. It was about making them watch. Watch as everything they tried to steal, bury, and twist bloomed into something unstoppable, in front of the entire industry. So no, I wasn't going to sue Sierra. That would make it a private matter. This had to be public. At Blackridge, the Apex line was ramping up faster than anyone expected. Dana pulled strings to accelerate production timelines, while our marketing director, Marin, ran focus groups and built a campaign around one unshakable idea. Gear built for the real outdoors by someone who never forgot the trail. It was honest, raw, and personal. Exactly the opposite of the flashy Instagram bait Iron Summit was now known for. Marin called it the Soul of Survival campaign. And the centerpiece of it? A short docuseries about me, my years in the field, the rejected designs, the betrayal, the comeback. I want people to know what happened, she said. At first, I hesitated. It felt egotistical, dangerous even. But then I thought about how Sierra was rewriting my story inside Iron Summit, how she was branding me as a relic while Justin got credit for my work. So I sat down with the camera crew. I told the truth. That same week, we locked in a deal with Trek Path, a major outdoor gear retailer. They were willing to launch Apex line in every one of their stores, if we could beat Iron Summit to market by 2 weeks. I said yes immediately. Now we had a real deadline. And real pressure. We didn't have the budget Iron Summit had. But we had the story. And if I knew anything about the outdoor community, it was this. They respected authenticity. So we leaned into it. We leaked teaser images. We uploaded behind-the-scenes footage of me in the lab, cutting materials by hand, sweating through real tests on mountain trails, not studio lights. While Iron Summit filmed their ads on fake snow with models and fresh makeup, I was out in a thunderstorm in Vermont, stress testing a prototype jacket for flex, weight, and breathability. Then, out of nowhere, I got another email. From Justin Crane. Subject, let's talk. I opened it. Short and smug. We could both end up looking bad if this gets messy. Let's not burn the whole industry down over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? You plagiarized my work, let me get fired for it, and now you're scared it might blow back? I didn't respond. But I printed the email. Just in case. The next day, Ethan came to me with something big. He'd managed to get access to a confidential supplier list from one of Iron Summit's overseas manufacturers, one we'd both worked with years ago. And buried in that document? An invoice. For my original jacket design. Not Justin's version. Mine. Same seam map. Same materials. Same internal pocket distribution. And the date? 2 months after I was terminated. They didn't even try to hide it. They were using my blueprints, just stripping off my name. I stared at the page. This is the smoking gun, Ethan said quietly. No, I corrected him. It's the matchstick. That night, I called Marin from marketing. Change the launch strategy, I told her. We're not just releasing a product. We're releasing the truth. She paused. You sure? More than ever. The new plan was risky. We'd release the Apex line with a coordinated media blitz, an open letter signed by me detailing the entire history, designs rejected, stolen, repackaged, and a time-stamped archive uploaded to a public server with every original concept. No press releases. No polite PR. Just one truth bomb dropped right in the middle of Iron Summit's glossy launch week. It was time to pull back the curtain. They'd spent months trying to erase me. Now I was going to make damn sure everyone remembered. The night before we went live, I sat alone in the Blackridge conference room. The Apex prototypes were lined up across the wall like battle armor. I ran my hand along the sleeve of the modular weather shell. I remembered designing it during a blizzard, hands nearly numb, carving notches into fabric until the seams lay flush. No one had helped me. No one had believed in it, except me. And now, it was about to go global. My phone buzzed. A text from Sierra. You won't recover from this. I stared at it for a long time. Then typed back. I already did. We launched at 5 a.m. on a Monday, just as the outdoor gear world was sipping its first coffee and refreshing their inboxes. The Apex line drop wasn't just a product release. It was a reckoning. First came the homepage update, raw footage of me standing in the pouring rain on Mount Marlow, holding a prototype jacket, mud-caked, exhausted, alive. Gear built from experience, not aesthetics. For the ones who go beyond the trail. Then came the open letter. I didn't sugarcoat a thing. I told the truth, how Iron Summit rejected my designs, claimed they weren't marketable, only to recycle them months later under a different name. How I'd been fired under the pretense of lacking creativity, while those same uncreative systems were now being hailed as innovation. Receipts included. Links to timestamp sketches. Export logs. Emails. Supply invoices. Even screenshots of internal Iron Summit memos Peter had sent me, where they plotted how to spin the story. And then came the final blow. A side-by-side comparison video showing the Apex line prototypes, real, field-tested, worn and torn, against Iron Summit's Elevation Series mock-ups. One looked like survival gear. The other looked like fashion cosplay. By 8:15 a.m. the outdoor forums had exploded. Industry Twitter? Melting down. Bloggers and gear reviewers were frothing over the documents. Some called it the biggest outdoor gear scandal in years. Hashtag Apex versus Elevation started trending. People weren't just mad, they were invested. Because for once it wasn't about brands. It was about principles. And authenticity. And what happens when the underdog finally hits back? By 10 a.m. TrekPath's servers crashed. Retailers started upping their Apex line pre-orders by 400%. Blackridge's switchboards lit up with calls from specialty gear shops begging to get in on the first wave. I stood in the middle of the office, surrounded by chaos, but my hands were steady. This was what Sierra had never understood. She thought good design was about looking sleek. She forgot that real survivalists don't care about pretty. They care about gear that works, when it counts. At noon I got a call from Peter. "She's losing it," he whispered. "Elena stormed into legal with your open letter printed out, screaming at everyone." "Good," I said. "She should be panicking. She's blaming Justin. He swears he came up with everything himself." I laughed, cold and hard. "They're turning on each other already?" Vivin called an emergency board meeting. "You shook the foundation, Cole." "Hard." Then the unexpected happened. An email popped up from Outside Magazine. Subject line, "Exclusive request, the real story of Apex." They wanted to run a feature. Full spread. Interview. Studio shoot. Cover slot. They were planning an exposé on corporate creative theft, and they wanted my name front and center. I didn't even have to think about it. Let's go. By 4 p.m., Iron Summit had gone into PR lockdown. No social posts. No elevation line promotions. Just silence. Even their website homepage had reverted to a generic banner. I watched it all from Marin's office at Blackridge, where we had a live feed of traffic spikes, user activity, and sales charts climbing like mountain peaks. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is justice," I corrected her. But just as I was finally breathing, just as I was letting the moment settle, a courier arrived at Blackridge HQ. Certified envelope. No sender listed. Inside, a cease and desist letter from Iron Summit's legal department. They accused me of a breach of confidentiality, trademark sabotage, libel, deliberate reputational harm. And they weren't bluffing. At the bottom was a pre-scheduled court hearing date. They were going to sue me. I passed the letter to Amira, our legal head. She skimmed it once and said, "This is the most aggressive bluff I've seen in 5 years. They think it'll scare me?" She smiled. "Let them try." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to be afraid. But I wasn't. I was calm. Because the deeper they dug, the more they'd uncover their own rot. And we weren't finished yet. Because tomorrow the Real twist dropped. One Sierra never saw coming. One that would flip the entire narrative upside down. They say revenge is best served cold. But this was Arctic. The day after Iron Summit threatened legal action, I dropped the one thing that shattered their case before it even hit a courtroom. A recorded video call. From 6 months ago. Let me back up. Back when I was still at Iron Summit, I'd gotten into the habit of screen recording major design review meetings. Not out of paranoia, just for notes, timestamps, design validation. But one meeting in particular stood out. It was a design review I had with Sierra and the executive board, just a few weeks before I was fired. In it, I presented the modular weatherproof jacket, the adaptive backpack system, and the ColdFlex hiking shell, all components of the Apex line. In the video, Sierra interrupts me mid-pitch. "Cole, I don't think this is consumer-ready. Too utilitarian. Not enough edge." "Are you saying it's not functional?" "I'm saying it doesn't sell. Let's shelve it." The kicker? Justin was in that meeting. And said nothing. 6 weeks later, the exact designs were resubmitted under his name. I had kept the video file. Backed up in 3 places. Encrypted. Hidden. And now it was time to let it breathe. I uploaded the video to an anonymous Dropbox folder and embedded the link in a public Reddit thread titled, "Proof Iron Summit Stole Apex Line Designs. Watch Sierra Reject Them Live." It took 9 minutes to go viral. Within an hour, the video was reposted on Twitter, outdoor gear forums, YouTube commentary channels, and even LinkedIn industry threads. The comments were merciless. "She said it didn't sell, then tried to sell it under someone else's name? This is design theft, plain and simple. Iron Summit equals iron scam." The video destroyed their last line of defense. There was no more denying that the Apex line was my creation, and that Iron Summit not only knew it, but had dismissed it outright before stealing it. By noon, Outside magazine updated their headline from, "Designer claims Apex line was stolen, the industry reacts," to, "Designer proves Apex line was stolen, the industry implodes." At 2:30 p.m., Blackridge's legal team received an email from Iron Summit's attorneys. 2 sentences. "We are withdrawing our legal complaint. We consider the matter closed." It wasn't closure. It was a surrender. But the reversal wasn't done yet. Because just as I was celebrating, Peter sent me one more gift. "Thought you'd want to see this," his message read. Attached was a leaked internal memo from Iron Summit's board of directors. Subject line, "Leadership Transition Strategy." The first line? "Effective immediately, Sierra Langford is no longer employed by Iron Summit Gear." I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. She was gone. Fired. Just like she'd fired me. But unlike me, she left in disgrace. That evening, I received a message from an unrecognized email address. The name? Justin Crane. I opened it. "I didn't know she was going to do that to you. I didn't mean for it to go this far. If there's any way to make it right." I didn't reply. There was no right left to make. He had his chance to speak up. He chose silence. Now the silence was mine to keep. The final twist came the next morning. Melissa, our CEO at Blackridge, called an all-hands meeting. "We broke every first quarter record with Apex," she announced. "Retailers are begging for more. So we're making a change." She turned to me. "Cole, you're being promoted to head of design and innovation." The room erupted in applause. But I was quiet. Because I was already thinking about what came next. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was rebirth. I stood in front of a wall of press clippings. Revolutionary. The most functional outdoor gear ever created. From rejected to renowned, Cole Barrett's Apex line shakes the industry. Each headline told a version of the same story. My story. But none of them knew what it really took to get here. None of them knew the nights I spent walking in the rain with prototypes strapped to my back. Or the humiliation of being cast aside by people who once claimed to respect me. They didn't see Sierra's tight-lipped smirk as she slid my termination papers across the table. They didn't see my face as I packed up 8 years of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights into a cardboard box and walked out without so much as a goodbye. But they saw the ending. They saw what came after. Apex became a global success. Within 3 months of launch, we had distribution deals in over 40 countries. Sales shattered projections by 300%. The gear I once sketched on diner napkins was now being used by Everest Base Camp teams, Arctic explorers, and tactical response units. And on every product tag in small embossed lettering. Designed by Cole Barrett. Not a team. Not a committee. Me. Iron Summit, meanwhile, was imploding. After Sierra's termination, Vivian, the CEO who once threatened me in a coffee shop, resigned under strategic review. They released a rebranded version of the Elevation line 3 months later. Completely redesigned, clunky, rushed. The reviews? Brutal. Disappointing follow-up from a once revered brand. Style over substance, and now not even style. Their stock plummeted 11% in 1 quarter. Retailers slashed their shelf space. Customers fled. One crisp fall evening, 6 months after the launch, I returned to the trail where I'd first tested my earliest designs. This time I wasn't wearing generic field gear. I was fully kitted in the Apex modular system. My legacy in motion. The jacket flexed perfectly as I climbed. The weight distribution on the pack was flawless. The temp-adaptive gloves adjusted mid-hike as the wind kicked up. Every stitch was born from my obsession with solving real problems. Problems Iron Summit had once called irrelevant. And now, they were irrelevant. As I stood on the ridge overlooking the city, I got a text from Peter, my old ally at Iron Summit. "She's gone for good. Word is she tried to sue the board. Got laughed out of arbitration. By the way, just saw a post about a gear designers conference next month. You're the keynote." Didn't know you'd say yes. I hadn't. But I was ready now. At the conference, I stood on a stage beneath a giant banner that read, Innovation through Integrity, the Apex Mindset. Hundreds of young designers, engineers, and brand leads filled the hall. I told them the truth, about betrayal, about how people will sometimes take everything from you the moment you stop being useful to them. But also how that's not where the story has to end. They told me I lacked creativity, I said. Then built an entire product line from my lack. They fired me to silence my vision. But all it did was give me a louder voice. The applause shook the walls. A month later, I got an anonymous package delivered to my apartment. Inside was a single folder. My original sketchbook from my Iron Summit office, the one I thought had been tossed or locked in storage forever. Tucked into the first page was a handwritten note in clean, looping script. You earned this. They never deserved it. Peter. I ran my fingers over the pages. Dozens of designs forgotten until now. Including one I'd never built. A modular tent system designed to withstand Arctic storms. I called Melissa. I've got an idea for winter 2025. That winter, Ridgeline, our parent company, doubled its valuation. Apex became its own brand division. And me? I became more than a designer. I became the proof that the right kind of revenge doesn't come from screaming louder. It comes from refusing to disappear. Sierra tried to erase me. Now, my name is etched into the gear, the company, and the industry forever. In the end, truth has a way of surfacing, even if it comes twisted through pain and betrayal. As one wise voice once said, sometimes your greatest enemy was once your closest ally. If this story struck a chord with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and spread the word, because justice deserves to be heard.